Hello and welcome to the Africa Briefing Podcast, where we unpack the stories shaping Africa's future, challenge dominant narratives, and center the voices that matter. I'm Jon Offei-Ansah, and today we are unpacking a moment that exposed not just political theater, but the deeper tensions between power, perception, and principle. Ramaphosa versus Trump. Dignity or defeat? There are moments in leadership that define not only the individual, but the soul of a nation. One such moment unfolded in the Oval Office earlier this week when South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa came face to face with US President Donald Trump. What should have been a standard diplomatic exchange quickly became a global spectacle, one laced with political landmines, misinformation, and racially charged rhetoric. Trump, ever the provocateur, launched a well-orchestrated ambush, complete with a video portraying white South Africans as victims of state-sponsored land seizures. It was classic Trump, calculated, chaotic, and crafted for headlines. But the world watched closely, because how Ramaphosa responded wouldn't just shape headlines. It would shape perception. And perception, especially in international politics, is power. And then something unexpected happened. Ramaphosa didn't flinch. He didn't lash out. He didn't play the role assigned to him. Angry African leader, cornered and reactive. No. He stayed calm, measured, resolute. He corrected the record with clarity, not fury. He defended South Africa's democratic institutions. He affirmed that land reform will be driven by justice, not revenge. He reminded the world that crime is a global challenge, not a uniquely African failure. And then he thanked Trump. A move that drew praise and puzzlement. Why thank a man who just threw your country under the bus? But that gesture wasn't weakness. It was calculated diplomacy. It said, I'm not here to perform rage. I'm here to outsmart you with grace. And in that moment, Ramaphosa reminded us what diplomacy can be when it is stripped of ego and rooted in dignity. But not everyone was impressed. Across the continent, critics asked, why was he there in the first place? Why walk into a trap when the bait is so obvious? Why seek approval from a country that has time and again used Africa as a talking point rather than a partner? Why engage a leader who arms conflicts in Gaza, who ignores the massacres of tens of thousands, most of them women and children, yet cries foul over land disputes in South Africa? These questions aren't anti-American. They are pro-accountability. They are about asserting Africa's right to define its own narrative without Western interference. And they go deeper, because what some saw as statesmanship, others saw as surrender, as complicity in a system that continues to favor the powerful and silence the vulnerable. Let's be clear, apartheid may be over on paper, but its economic skeleton still grips much of South Africa. Land remains concentrated in the hands of the white minority. Economic mobility for Black South Africans is still severely restricted. And some spaces, yes, even today remain implicitly, if not explicitly, segregated. So when Ramaphosa shook Trump's hand in that room, it wasn't just symbolic, it was strategic. But what is wrong? But was it strong? That's where the divide lies. Because restraint is noble, but only when it does not silence truth. Diplomacy is powerful, but only when it protects dignity. And image, though essential, should never come at the expense of integrity. This moment begs bigger questions about African leadership as a whole. Across the continent, we've seen leaders who mistake proximity to foreign power for legitimacy, who treat photo ops in Western capitals as more valuable than community forums at home, who fly to summits in Europe but dodge accountability in parliament. We've seen those who talk tough locally but tiptoe abroad, who enforce silence at home, then beg for funding overseas. This is not leadership. This is theater. And Africa cannot afford theater. Not now. Not when children go to bed hungry. Not when schools have no roofs. Not when entire communities live without electricity while elites chase handshakes abroad. Our leaders must remember, the world respects a continent that respects itself. And respect starts with standing tall, even in the Oval Office. So yes, Ramaphosa handled that encounter with grace. And yes, in a world driven by noise and ego, his calm was powerful. But that moment was not just a masterclass in diplomacy. It was also a cautionary tale. Because leadership is not about enduring humiliation for the sake of applause. It is about choosing battles wisely, showing courage where it counts, and never forgetting who you represent. The people, the landless, the voiceless, the ones left behind by economic apartheid and political neglect. And to them, diplomacy without justice is not just diplomacy, it is betrayal. As Africans, we must stop being flattered by invitations and start being empowered by vision. We must invest in ourselves before we seek aid from others. We must amplify our own voices before we beg to be heard elsewhere. This is the path forward. So yes, Ramaphosa walked into Trump's trap, and some say he walked out with grace. But we must ask, did he walk out stronger? Did Africa? Because in a world where perception shapes policy, where image drives investment, and where words can wound nations, these moments matter. They shape more than headlines. They shape history. This has been the Africa Briefing Podcast. I'm Jon Offei-Ansah. Until next time, stay thoughtful, stay brave, and above all, stay committed to Africa's truth, and don't forget to keep hope alive. Goodbye.